Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is Jesse Milestone, and there's been some discussion back and forth regarding Game of Thrones as to whether this show is a problematically feminist show because there's too much girl power, or if it's very not a feminist show at all, and in fact so offensive to women. And I don't think the show is offensive to women, but I do not see this as if, considering the amount of rape that the writers have put into the show, rapes that don't even happen in the books. I don't really think Benioff and Weiss are going for like a hardcore feminist angle here. That seems weird. Also, based on, a big motif of Game of Thrones from Martin, and one of the few things that Benioff and Weiss have managed to hang on to just a little bit in their writing is the idea of power corrupting. And you see this in interesting ways with the men and with the women. And in fact, you see the power corrupting the women in some cases more. I mean, look at Dany. We're full into like Mad Queen Targaryen with Dany. Which does harken back to the Targaryen bloodline and the madness there, so it's not necessarily a male or female comment there. But you also like, and you don't see. I mean, because a lot of this film a lot of this show is about women trying to gain the power, so you see more of the effects of the power on them, whereas, like, you don't see power really having a horrifying effect on Jon Snow. So there's a commentary in there that's very not feminist at all. And one thing that's really interesting, too, is if you follow, and I've spoken before on the female characters of Game of Thrones. Now, they're all really interesting because they all represent very different kinds of women. And you could say the same about the male characters in Game of Thrones. They do represent different types of men. And Jon Snow, and the reason why so many people, I think, feel so strongly about him and connect to him so deeply is because he is that he didn't walk around his whole life being an alpha male, but he's that quiet leader type where he just has those qualities. He has that inner strength that inspires people to follow him. Without having to walk around and assert his male dominance over everybody, which just, of course, smacks of insecurity. So now on the other hand of that, you have, Jon is sort of the perfect leader in that way, because he's this uncorrupted, he's the best choice. Always the reluctant leader is the best choice because, he didn't want it, so he's not going to abuse the power. And the opposite side of that is Cersei, who's been thirsty for power since the day she was born. And the interesting thing about Cersei is that she draws the most parallels to what modern feminists look like. You have other characters like Brienne, who's, this is sort of an older version of feminism where it's like, I just want to do the things that the men do that they say I'm not allowed to do because I'm a woman. She just wants to be a knight. And that was sort of like, that was more like the very early, that was early women's suffrage feminism. We just want the right to vote. We just want to be able to go to work and get a job. And that representative of that, like, that changed in certain different ways. Dany, I think, grabs a little into the next wave of those things of like, well, I want to have power too. I want to be a leader too. And I want to be recognized for the same things that men are recognized for, etc., etc. And then you go all the way to Cersei, and Cersei is your beautiful modern-day feminist, where she just grew up wanting power for herself and getting more bitter and more jaded because of all the men who had it so much easier around her because of all the stuff they had. And so her entire quest for power has nothing to do with helping other people, and there's no positive message for the rest of womankind. There's just power for her. And this is exactly what modern feminism looks like. This is exactly what it looks like. This is why modern feminism is so concerned with things like the number of CEOs in the, who are female, the number of women on a board, the number of female actresses getting paid X, Y, and Z in Hollywood. These people are not focused, because just like Cersei, who came from privilege, the people right now who are dominating this new feminist message, they didn't come from poverty. They didn't come from a situation where they were actually seriously at risk of getting raped day after day, where they were at risk because they have no education, of ending up having a guy get her pregnant and then walk out on her and have to live the rest of her life as a single mom. This is not the world that Cersei exists in. This is not the world that these modern third wave feminists exist in. They never had to suffer in these ways. All they saw was like, oh my god, my consent is so violated because he didn't make sure I said yes 8 times. And consent's a delicate issue, sure, I guess, and no does not mean yes. No means if you keep doing it, I'm gonna punch you in the fucking face. But that conversation went so far off the deep end. That went so quickly. Like, it started in this country, but like, it's solid conversation about consent. About like, yeah, maybe if she's super hammered, you shouldn't take advantage of her. And then got into this realm of like, well, if she's super hammered and you're super hammered, it's the guy's fault for raping her. Which is just, like, once again, it's this ridiculous idea of like, let's take this concept of it's so frustrating for me as a privileged woman who's so hot and guys like so much that if I have sex with a bunch of people, I'm known as a slut, whereas he's known as a player. So let me just make sex into this great power I can wield over men by being like, you're a disgusting pig every time you want sex, because this benefits me and my personal insecurities, because I couldn't spin that narrative on my own. I didn't have the strength to live past some name somebody called me. So now I have to get back at everybody who's ever wronged me and everybody who looks vaguely similar to those who've ever wronged me, because I need to feel good about myself every day, and I can't do that unless I make everyone else do things for me. And that's CERSEI to a T, though. That's exactly how she is. She hurts and damages everybody around her out of her own selfish desires. Do the things she do to get power. I mean, she could easily. I mean, obviously she's not going to this stupid one makes sense in the show. You could easily see CERSEI having a grand speech about what an inspiration she is to other women, because she, scrapped and did things for herself and found a way to do it. And she does have some moments like that. I think even in the books, maybe in the show, I don't remember what happens in the show, but she definitely does have moments of sort of being sort of smugly proud of herself, like, but also like righteously indignant about how much harder things were, how much harder it was to do the things she wanted, to get the things she wanted, because she was a woman, and so that sort of smacks this idea of like, how proud she is that she's actually been able to accomplish all of this in spite of her disadvantage. And you could easily transition that straight into a grand old speech about, look at all these things I did for women by proving that I could be queen. Look at me go. And the reality is what does she do for the poor people of King's Landing? She uses them as a human shield. She lets them starve. She doesn't give a crap about them. And that is so perfectly parallel to the way that a lot of modern third-wave feminists are in our society. Do you see them going out there raising money for women who can't buy feminine hygiene products? Do you see them going out there trying to help women who got pregnant when they were too young have educational opportunities to better their lives? No. You see them running around, trying to take down Hollywood icons for sexually harassing people. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, that we shouldn't be taking down people for sexual harassment. But of course, it's gone so far off the deep end to the point of like, oh, this guy spoke to me funny one day. Let's ruin his career through the Me Too movement. That's what you see them doing. That's what you see them running around doing. You see them running around caring about, how many women writers are in the room on a Hollywood something, how many women are on the board, etc. These things that only concern people who are already in a position of privilege. You don't get to the point of vying to become a CEO without already having achieved a certain amount of privilege, whether you earned it or whether you were born with it. The whole issue of can I become a CEO? Can I get on the board of this company? That is a privileged look at feminism. There are so many women in this country who don't even have those opportunities. And men, by the way, this is not just women, this is women and men. And there are also women in the country who don't know that they have those opportunities because nobody is championing for them. People who grow up in pockets, because there are certainly communities in this country that still adhere to more traditional gender roles that say that a woman shouldn't be doing that. She shouldn't be going out in the workplace. She shouldn't be getting, having these things. And if you don't believe that that's true, then you're just as privileged. You're going to deny that and be like, no, that doesn't happen. That doesn't exist. Then you're just as privileged as the toxic feminists. That's just the reality, because there are people all over this country. And I said, I'm just to be clear, because I know everyone's gonna get their panties in a twist, and everyone's gonna comment and be like, men suffer too. I know. I'm not talking about that right now. All right? I'll make a video about how men suffer sometime later. Okay? But get over it. We're talking about women suffering right now, because this is the thing. But this is also, by the way, not even to fault you so hard for that, because it's another result of modern feminism, right? The struggles that CERSEI goes through, and the lack of power and the need to gain it are very similar in a society that the Westeros has set up to what the second son goes through. Because the first son is promised everything, the land, the title, the lordship, all of these things. And the second son is tasked with having to go, find his own power, create his own life. Maybe he's going to have to murder his older brother to get power. I don't know, right? But the thing is, all right, so this is exactly the point. Exactly the point is that a lot of these struggles and trials and, oh my God, life is so hard, it's not exclusive to being female. There are things that are, there are things that aren't. And one of the things is that because of this over focus on all of these struggles being female struggles and ignoring all male struggles, men just get their panties in a wad every time you talk about a female issue, because like, we have issues too. Yes, I get that. Everyone has issues, all right? But just because you're talking about one set of issues, that doesn't mean you're neglecting another set of issues, all right? In this particular instance, we're talking about feminism, so we're going to talk about women. It's just how it works. But yes, but very, very pointedly, very specifically, that's CERSEI Lannister is modern feminism to a T. Look at all this privilege I have, but it wasn't enough because everything wasn't super easy for me. There were setbacks that I had because I was female, and that's just such a narrow view that just neglects and ignores the rest of the world, where people have very different struggles, where everybody has different struggles based on different. Where everybody in the world is struggling more than fucking CERSEI Lannister is. No matter what they look like or what gender they are. And there are particular women's issues that are much worse and much harder to deal with, that affect a population that doesn't have nearly the privilege that CERSEI does. But she didn't care about any of that. None of that matters to her. All that matters is that I was disenfranchised. I had these hardships. Now I need to get power. And that's third wave feminism to a fucking T. I decided that I didn't get everything I wanted to. I'm going to use feminism as the excuse. Oh, the men trying to keep me down. And so that I'm going to twist this narrative. I'm going to make men into the enemy. I'm going to smack them down and push them around and do whatever I need to do to further this agenda, so people will feel sorry for me and bad for me, because, oh, poor me, what a poor woman I am that didn't have all of these nice things. When the reality is, you're so effing privileged. I am so privileged. And yeah, there are things I face day to day. Every day I'm going to have encounters where I'm treated differently in a situation than a man would be because I'm a woman. That doesn't mean I'm disadvantaged necessarily because of that. There are occasional situations in my life. They have been very few. There have been very few situations in my life where I've actively felt disadvantaged because I was female. The one that always comes to mind is just becoming a fencing referee, becoming a saber referee. And that's really it. That's the big one. Everything else, I might be treated differently, but I'm not disadvantaged. Are there women in the world who are disadvantaged because of their sex? Yeah, see Saudi Arabia. They're really disadvantaged because of their sex. And so to look at that and sit here and be so concerned about my personal issues and microaggressions against women, and why aren't there more women in the writing room in Hollywood? What a privileged perspective. Women are being stoned to death. Women are being forced out because of archaic beliefs about periods. Women in Asian countries, and I think Nepal does this, will, even though it's illegal, will shove their woman into a hut, let her freeze to death in the cold because she's not allowed in the house when she's on her period. That's suffering because of your sex. And it exists. Which is why, just like CERSEI is so incredibly selfish to only focus on how these struggles have affected her, third wave feminists are so blind and so selfish to engage so much time and energy addressing these trivial matters that are not holding them back, that are not stopping them from success, and ignoring the number of women in the country, in the world, who are having those issues, who are having real problems because of their sex, who aren't getting educated on how to take care of their bodies, perhaps when they're menstruating, who don't have the option of doing things to take care of that, women who are getting pregnant by accident or on purpose, who don't have good access to childcare, who don't have the right educational tools to know how to support themselves and take care of their children. So before you're going to get out and complain, next time you're going to get out and complain that a guy called you sweetie, and oh my god, how sexist. Is that effed up? If a guy talks down to you and calls you sweetie in a conversation when you know more about that thing than they do? Sure it is. Sure it is. Is that the epitome of sexism in America? No, get the F over it. It happened. Deal with it. I talk down to people all the frickin' time, and it's not because of gender. It's just because some people are douchebags. Acknowledge that. This person is not, oh my god, it's just sexist pig. He's just a douchebag. Move on. Move on. I've had women call me sweetie too in the same context. Doesn't make them, oh my god, sexist. It just makes them a douchebag. So, deal with that and move on. Deal with that and move on. Find a real issue. If you're going to spend your entire life being outraged and complaining and try to fight real issues, right? Find real issues to fight for. Find real issues to fight for. Please and thank you. I hope CERSEI dies at the end of Game of Thrones. That's all. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and press that like button. Click on the video popping up that says get involved with me. Buy a Jesse Shot First t-shirt. Subscribe to the LA Cheesesteak Reviews. I have content up there any day now. It's going to be such a great show. But yeah, click get involved with me if you want to learn more about different ways to get involved with my channel, like my Patreon, Teespring, social media, Twitter at Jesse Milestone, Instagram at Mindless Entertainment. You guys are amazing. Thank you. All of your engagement helps my channel so much more than you know, and I can't appreciate it. There's no further depths that I could possibly appreciate from, because I appreciate you so much. And that is all for today. God Empress out.